Imagine a time before certainty, a world shrouded in mystery. Before science illuminated every corner of our world, before empirical evidence reigned supreme. A time when the unseen held as much sway as the seen. England, 1726, a nation teetering between reason and superstition, where the old ways clashed with the burgeoning Enlightenment. The air was thick with stories, passed down through generations, monsters lurking in the shadows of the forest, and miracles whispered in taverns, fueling both hope and fear. The line between real and imagined was a fog, blurring the edges of perception, where anything seemed possible, and the extraordinary could be just around the corner. The human body was a mystery, a complex machine with workings only partially understood. The womb a secret garden, fertile ground for both life and speculation, where life was forged in ways no one understood, a process both miraculous and terrifying. Doctors relied on ancient texts and raw observation, piecing together the puzzle of human health. No X-rays, no genetics, just intuition and inherited wisdom. They believed in maternal impression, a powerful force shaping the unborn, that a mother's experiences could shape her unborn child, imprinting upon them in profound ways. A fright, a craving, a shocking sight. These could leave their mark on the new life she carried, influencing its very nature. This wasn't just folklore, whispered around the hearth. It was accepted medical theory, debated by the Royal Society, pondered by the greatest minds of the age. If a woman was startled by a hair, its image burned into her mind. Could her child be born with a hair lip? Many thought so, a visible manifestation of the mother's fright. This idea explained the unexplainable, offering a framework for understanding the mysteries of birth, giving order to the chaos of birth defects, providing comfort in the face of the unknown. In this world, a strange story was about to unfold, a tale that would challenge the very foundations of belief. In the muddy lanes of Godalming, Surrey, a small town steeped in tradition and rumor, an ordinary woman would make an extraordinary claim, one that would ripple through society, and a nation would be forced to ask, to question everything they thought they knew. What do we truly know? What is the nature of reality itself? Her name was Mary Toft, a name that would soon echo through the coffee houses and cobbled streets of England. She was a poor, largely illiterate woman of 25 years of age, living a life far removed from the corridors of power and the gaze of the elite. Her life was one of relentless toil and utter obscurity, spent in the fields and humble dwellings of rural Surrey, until quite unexpectedly, she became the most famous person in England, a figure of both fascination and controversy. The bizarre and unbelievable story began in April of 1726, when Mary, while working in the fields, was allegedly startled by a rabbit darting across her path, an image that would soon become deeply embedded in her mind. She suffered a miscarriage several weeks later, a tragic event in itself, but Mary insisted with unwavering conviction that this was no ordinary loss, no simple misfortune. She claimed, to the astonishment of those around her, that she was giving birth, not to a human child as nature intended, but to rabbits, or rather, to a horrifying collection of their dismembered parts. The local midwife, a woman named Mary Gill, assisted in what she described as the delivery of these grotesque and unnatural births, a scene that defied all medical understanding, and in doing so, became an unwitting witness to the unfolding drama. News of this extraordinary event spread quickly through the small town of Godalming. Was it a miracle? A sign from above? A curse? A dark omen foretelling some future calamity, or simply a monstrous impossibility? The local doctor, a man named John Howard, arrived on the scene deeply skeptical, his medical training leading him to dismiss the claims as mere hysteria. But he left a changed man, a fervent believer, after witnessing these bizarre events with his own eyes. Over the course of a month, an unbelievable period of time, he claimed to have personally delivered several more animal parts from Mary, each birth more astonishing than the last. The spectacle grew with each passing day, and so did the widespread belief in Mary's impossible predicament. Was Mary truly a vessel for some unprecedented medical marvel, a phenomenon that defied all scientific understanding? Or was she, in fact, the cunning architect of an elaborate and audacious deception, a fraud of epic proportions? The already fragile line between the burgeoning field of science and the deeply ingrained beliefs of superstition began to blur and waver. Dr. Howard, convinced of the truth of what he had witnessed, was ready to tell the world of this extraordinary case. The unbelievable story was now out, spreading like wildfire through the towns and villages. And England, a nation ripe with curiosity and prone to flights of fancy, was about to be completely captivated by the unfolding events. The impossible, against all reason and logic, had seemingly become undeniable, at least for the moment, before the inevitable scrutiny began. The stage was now set for a national sensation, a spectacle that would grip the nation and challenge the very foundations of belief. John Howard, now a fervent believer in Mary's bizarre claims, meticulously documented the case with utmost care. He saw it as his duty to record every detail, every strange occurrence, for posterity. He even went so far as to preserve animal parts in jars, attempting to categorize and understand the impossible deliveries. These specimens became grim trophies of a medical enigma. Howard, driven by a desire for validation and understanding, wrote urgent letters to London's top doctors, seeking their opinions and expertise on this unprecedented phenomenon. He boldly staked his reputation, his entire professional standing, on the veracity of Mary's extraordinary story, convinced that he was witnessing a miracle of sorts. The Toft cottage, once a humble dwelling, became a spectacle, a magnet for the curious and the skeptical alike. Neighbors whispered, skeptics scoffed, and the curious from far and wide were all drawn to witness what seemed utterly impossible: a woman giving birth to rabbits. Mary's violent and agonizing labors produced, disturbingly, rabbit heads, spines, and even the dismembered legs of a cat. The evidence, at first glance, seemed undeniably real. Fresh, bloody animal parts, purportedly delivered before a growing number of bewildered witnesses. Howard, in his quest for scientific validation, even performed a crude experiment, placing a rabbit's lung in water, a test he believed would reveal whether the creature had breathed air, thus proving in his mind that it had indeed breathed air and was therefore viable. To him, in the context of the limited scientific understanding of the time, this was irrefutable science. But as the days passed, troubling details began to emerge, casting a shadow of doubt over the entire affair. Most notably, some of the animal parts inexplicably contained traces of hay and straw. How could a rabbit, gestating within the confines of a womb, have possibly consumed field grass, let alone hay and straw? For Howard, blinded by his conviction, these anomalies were not clues pointing towards a deliberate hoax, but rather deeper, more perplexing mysteries that demanded further investigation. The spectacle, fueled by rumor and fascination, only continued to grow, drawing ever larger crowds. The boundaries of belief and reason were stretched to their absolute breaking point, threatening to snap under the weight of the unbelievable. All of England, and indeed much of the world, was watching with bated breath, and the sensational story was poised to escape the quiet, unassuming confines of the small village of Godalming, forever changing its place in history. The Age of Enlightenment, a time of both incredible scientific advancement and lingering superstition, had found its perfect, most perplexing tale. And this bizarre chapter in medical history was, in reality, only just beginning to unfold. The story of Mary Toft spread quickly, reaching London's bustling streets. Newspapers and pamphlets seized on the tale, selling sensational woodcuts of Mary in labor. Public opinion split, some called it a hoax. Others cited maternal impression as proof. The medical community was thrown into confusion. Letters, pamphlets, and debates raged. The case became a battleground between science and superstition. For the public, it was entertainment, ballads, jokes, and satirical poems flourished. The humble rabbit became a symbol of the bizarre. Mary Toft was no longer just a woman. She was a national obsession. The story's reach was unstoppable, and soon it would reach the highest office in the land. The king himself was about to take notice. The nation held its breath. The whispers reached St. James's Palace and the ears of King George I. Fascinated by science and wonders, the king wanted the truth. He sent his personal surgeon, Nathaniel St. Andre, to investigate. St. Andre, ambitious and eager for fame, traveled to Godalming with the king's secretary. At the Toft cottage, he witnessed a rabbit torso delivered before his eyes. St. Andre examined the specimen, felt Mary's abdomen, and was stunned. Like Howard, he became a believer. He returned to London, reporting to the king that the case was genuine. Saint Andre published his findings, giving the story royal endorsement. The king's approval plunged the nation deeper into belief and bewilderment. The medical world was electrified. The public was enthralled. The story had the highest validation possible. The line between fact and fantasy blurred further. The rabbit woman of Godalming was now a royal affair. The stakes had never been higher. The truth or the lie was about to be tested. All eyes turned to London. With royal backing, Mary Toft was brought to London for round-the-clock observation. At Lacey's Bagnio, she became a national spectacle, scrutinized by the kingdom's top surgeons. Days passed. No more rabbits appeared. Cyriacus Ahlers, a skeptical German surgeon, noticed something odd. The animal bones were cut, not broken, and some contained hay and straw. He quietly reported his suspicions to the king, but the public frenzy drowned him out. Meanwhile, Saint Andre doubled down, defending Mary and giving public lectures. The affair became a circus. Satirists mocked the doctors, the public clamored for news. The credibility of English medicine was on trial. The pressure to produce a live rabbit, or a confession, was unbearable. Doubt was growing. The spectacle could not last forever. The truth was closing in. The unraveling was about to begin. The turning point came not from science, but from a porter at the Bagnio. Mary's sister-in-law asked him to secretly procure a small rabbit. Suspicious, the porter reported this to Sir Thomas Clarges, a justice of the peace. Clarges investigated and found evidence of rabbits being smuggled into Mary's room. The net tightened. Doubt became accusation. Mary was under constant watch, unable to produce another miracle. Her supporters, desperate, urged her to continue, but the magic was gone. Sir Richard Manningham, a skeptical physician, threatened surgery to inspect her womb. Terrified, Mary broke. On December 7, 1726, she confessed. It was all a hoax. She had inserted animal parts herself with help. The most sensational medical story of the age collapsed overnight. The doctors' reputations were in ruins. The nation was stunned. The truth was stranger and sadder than fiction. Mary Toft's confession was as shocking as her hoax. She described how she and an accomplice inserted animal parts, simulating labor to fool witnesses. The fallout was swift and brutal. Nathaniel St. Andre, the king's surgeon, was humiliated and ruined. John Howard, the country doctor, was disgraced. The public erupted in ridicule. Cartoons, poems, and satirical engravings mocked the doctors. The scandal damaged trust in the medical profession for years. Toft became a byword for fraud. Mary herself was imprisoned, but public anger focused on the doctors she had fooled. After her release, she faded into obscurity. Her brief, bizarre fame was over. She had exposed the gullibility of her age. The mirror she held up was not a flattering one. Why did so many believe the impossible? The world was still a place of mystery, where science and superstition blurred. Maternal impression offered a framework, and the evidence seemed undeniable. The scandal forced medicine to confront its own credulity and move toward evidence-based practice. The affair helped discredit old theories and pushed science forward. The story also revealed the power of narrative and media. Once the tale spread, it was hard to question. People wanted to believe in the marvelous and strange. The story was too good, too entertaining to doubt. Today, we look back with disbelief. But are we so different? We live in our own age of misinformation and viral stories. The tale of Mary Toft is a timeless, cautionary tale. Truth is fragile. Even the brightest minds can be deceived. Always question what you see, what you hear, and what you're told to believe.